Hi there, folks. Welcome back to the WP-Tonic. This is show 224. We've got a great guest, has been a regular on our panel recently, contributed a lot, but just a great person in general. Always makes me laugh. And that's Mendel from Godaddy. Would you like to give the audience a quick introduction, Mendel?
Yeah, I'm Mendel. I've been at Godaddy for close to 8 years. Done a lot of things and have a background in engineering, but now I work on community stuff, getting information out into telling our story to the WordPress and broader technical community, and pulling feedback back in from the community. So.
Oh, thanks, Mendel. And I'd like to introduce my co-guest, Kim. Like to introduce yourself, Kim?
Absolutely. I'm Kim Shipler. I teach business communications and technology.
And I'm your host, Jonathan Denwood, the founder of WP-Tonic. So all complaints, queries can come straight to me, folks.
Wait, hold on. What's the email address?
It's Jonathan at WP-Tonic.com. Oh, God. So, Mendel, you're the Godaddy Evangelist. I always thought that title for a company, Evangelist, is quite an interesting title. Can you give some indication to the listeners and viewers what an evangelist actually does?
Yeah, I think it varies broadly across organizations. So, one of the first there's Guy Kawasaki, there's Scoble, right? There have been some pretty notable names that kind of helped to start off the whole evangelist idea. Now, back then, I really think the classic evangelist was a person who taught somebody how to use an API or a technology or a platform with the things that they are working on, right? More broadly, it's funny because a lot of people call themselves evangelists in the WordPress community, and they call themselves WordPress evangelists, but then they work for a bigger company, right? And so those people have defined it in a slightly different way. Now we have evangelists for other organizations. By the way, I don't agree with this title in this case, so I'm not going to name those organizations. But they consider an evangelist a sales role, right? And so what I would define modern evangelism as is a person or people that represent a company to a community for the purpose of creating education on both sides, delivering information on both sides, without without being tied to a sales or a revenue goal. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about it, folks. There was a little bit of background noise. Yeah, it's interesting what it is really. So, how long have you been doing evangelism with Godaddy? Then, how long has it been so far? Then,
yeah. So I took this job 4 years ago, and
right.
that was around the time that Godaddy was building a new managed WordPress product and kind of fixing that hosting situation and swearing off those advertising practices of the past and things like that, and kind of when the tide started to turn as far as the company's objectives.
Right. So you've been doing it for a while. On reflection, what have you learnt about being an evangelist? And secondly, what have you learnt about the WordPress community in those 4 years?
About being an evangelist, I've made more friends than I set out to make. I came out, when you start working on a project for a company, you work on a project, you know, and you're certainly not getting paid. You know, your boss doesn't come to you and say, hey, why don't you go, you know, have some great friendships in a community all over the world. They say, hey, you know, why don't you help get the word out about what we're up to and get some feedback from the community, right? So that was one of the most surprising and quite frankly rewarding things that came with the job. The second question was related to how. Sorry, I forgot the second part.
What have you learned about the WordPress community in general?
Yeah. So, and I gotta apologize, Jonathan. I got off I flew from San Francisco to Austin, Texas this morning. I got off the plane at 5 a.m. So I'm a little tired. So what have I learned? I've learned that the WordPress community is very anomalous. So there are a lot of open source communities that produce open source software. They have business ecosystems around that software. WordPress is enormous, and there are people making a ton of money. And when people go out into the community, you would think that there would be this aggressive posture to grab business at WordCamps and at meetups and online and in forums and things like that. And sometimes you see some of that from people posting links to their blogs or their new hosting companies or whatever it is. But for the most part, people are very, very respectful of the values and the principles of the WordPress community, which I think is very, very unique. You don't see that in other open source communities.
Oh, right. It's been the only open source community that I've been actively involved with, actually. So having that insight about some others is really useful, Mendel. Obviously, you got a new CEO, Scott. One of the things when I was reading the news story was that it was saying that Godaddy has over 16 million clients. Is that roughly right, actually, Mendel?
Oh yeah, no, we wouldn't joke about stuff that we put out in the media. So a lot of our clients are domain clients. Right. We're I think now the largest of the WordPress hosts. We host WordPress sites at Media Temple and at GoDaddy. And now with our HEG companies over in the UK, or sorry, in Europe. And so we host a lot of WordPress, which is pretty awesome. And so that's a subset of other product holders. The majority of our customers are small businesses. So that kind of gives you an idea. If somebody has an idea, they want to go start a cupcake shop or something like that, they come to us because we've long been advocates for small businesses.
So, with the new CEO, what would you hope to see in the next 18 months when it comes to GoDaddy's relationship with the WordPress community? What would be your hope list of what might be achievable?
Well, so the good part is, so I have one request, and I was just in Seattle and spent some time with Scott and asked him, or kind of gave him a piece of my mind, and I said, listen, beyond all else, what I care about most is customer-centric product development. And it's something that we have continued to excel at GoDaddy, and I just want to see us continue to do that, especially when it comes to WordPress. That we're building things that people are just freaking excited about, just delighted about, and that help people, right? And so basically, it was a reaffirmation, saying to Scott, "Hey, man, are you in for this?" Because Blake was. Blake was all about, and still is until he's done with his job, because he's not done yet. We're still putting his feet to the fire. But are you down with this the same way Blake was? And he's like, "Yep." In fact, he's like, "I'm down with it two times harder than you are." And I'm like, I'm really excited about it. So you must be super stoked. So anyway. That's my only. I think when we do that, and you've seen us do that over the past couple of years, when we do that and really build products for the community and our customers, like, everybody wins, right? The customers win, we make money, people are happy with our services. So I think, that's the only thing that I want to see.
Well, that's great. Obviously, GoDaddy has had its ups and downs in the WordPress community, and you probably on a regular basis hear some of the downs, and hopefully you hear some of the ups as well. On reflection, what do you think that what I've just said about ups and downs, and maybe until recently, I'm trying to find the right words here because I want to be totally fair. Some of the inconsistencies, do you think that was because GoDaddy didn't really understand the WordPress communities, or was it that it's dealing with such a large market that people don't understand that WordPress is the important part for GoDaddy, but it's also dealing with a lot of other things as well?
Yeah. Respectfully, I don't think it's either of those. So I've thought about this a lot over the past few years, and I've looked at other companies that have done that have had gaffes in the past, or done things that the community didn't like, within the WordPress community, within the broader community. Looking at other larger organizations, right? And by the way, in the grand scheme of things, compared to some gargantuan companies, GoDaddy is quite small, right? So we have to keep that into perspective, that it's large in the hosting industry, right? And in the domains industry, but compared. Now all of the world's huge companies have just vaporized from my mind, but
Microsoft, Apple.
When you think about, we I don't know how many employees we have right now, but it's in the thousands, not the hundreds of thousands. So so keeping that in mind, I used to think it was about us, and I used to think it was we did all of these bad things, or things that gave people a bad taste in their mouth, and so. Because of that, we've kind of been on the wrong side of the community, and that's true. There was a lot of stuff that we just used to suck at, right? There's a lot of stuff that we didn't do right, or that people within the organization represented in a strange way, right? That the majority of the people in our company didn't feel the same way. However, I think what I've learned is that really the issue was there was no communication channel, right? And when you have no communication channel, so think about this: when you don't know what's going on in a situation, you're freaked out, right? And if that's it's your business, that you don't know what's going on with your technology provider, and your livelihood relies on it, then you're super freaked out, right? And so for the first time in the history of the company, people in the WordPress community and beyond have had a channel to communicate directly with people within the organization. And I think that's what that's what changed things. Of course, we changed product, we changed marketing practices, we changed policy, we changed, all of these different things. But to be truthful, those things weren't things that we didn't believe in, or those weren't things that we didn't want to change. We wanted to change all those things. Those changes were going to happen regardless of our work in the WordPress community, right? It's been a function of creating a communications tool for the community and for us. So.
I think that's a great point. We're going to go for our break, folks. When we come back, we've got some more questions from Mendel Kurland. He's a little bit jet lagged, but he still was a champ coming on the show, and it's appreciated. We'll be back in a minute, folks. We're coming back, folks. We're talking about all things GoDaddy, and we're talking about our great friend Mendel Kurland. I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly. She's ready. Kim, got any questions?
I do have a few. Just as a funny background too, I was a technical evangelist back in the pre-2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. So in that day, what it meant, and I was in Austin, Texas, by the way, with a company called Tivoli that's owned by IBM.
Yeah.
And in those days, we were part of the sales organization, sort of, but we weren't a sales role as far as...
You weren't gold that way?
Yeah, we weren't gold that way. So we were kind of the bridge between the engineers and the sales team and the customers. So I could be called in to speak to customers or to go around and teach the sales teams what engineering had coming up. And that was always, back then, that was my exposure to it.
Yeah, now they call that like technical integrations or something like that, right? Yeah,
the marketers get a hold of these names and everything changes, or HR, whoever does it. And, I had a question for you that jumped out on the communication channel. It kind of made me think of, GoDaddy was part of the very early hosting and early, definitely domain name companies. I wonder how much of that was a shift from the way we all did business pre-2000. For companies was much more formal. We didn't talk about things like building community, etc. So communications channels, unless you were a large company or an enterprise type company, frequently weren't there. How much do you think integrating that new communication channel and all is just a part of really connecting with the times of what people are looking for now, and GoDaddy being on board with that?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question. So I remember I was around when we first set up the Twitter and the Facebook accounts for GoDaddy, and every single post, every single time, had to be approved by the high. Well, most of the time had to be approved by the highest levels, because when this first started out, it didn't last long, but I think everybody in this world was kind of caught off guard by how quickly things like social media became real, right? This opportunity now to be able to speak directly to a big brand. I was on a United flight a few days ago, and I just tweeted at them and I said, hey, people always beat you up for the negative. Just want to tell you thanks. I arrived 15 minutes early. And they responded, immediately. And it was an employee of United, and I've had negative experiences do the same thing, and those things get handled. It's a beautiful new time, but it's very, very scary for corporations, right? And what social media did is it forced corporations' hands to start to snap out of that super formal kind of the shield of the brand, right? The shield of the corporate identity, because what the public said is, we want to know who you are, right? We want to know the people that exist there. We want to know if you're really good people or bad people or whatever. And so that it was a struggle, I think, with us in the same way that it was a struggle with any other organization. Really figuring out like how do we do this, you know? And this was kind of the evangelism, or this part of things. The team that I work on is kind of the pinnacle of this effort. That, you know, I can come on a podcast and I can tell you things used to suck and now they don't suck. And to be honest, that statement, probably, you know, in a different time, I might not be as comfortable doing that, you know? So, and the company might not be as comfortable hearing it. So
you might have a little note from HR when you got back to your desk.
There might be, right? Yeah, I hope that I never say crazy shit. You know, there's always a worry, right? Because you're representing a company, but yeah.
And so it seems like a lot of times with companies, and again, most of my corporate work was in the days before where we are now. I've had to learn to loosen up even in my own business. How much of that makes just your legal department crazy? And do you ever have to run things through them?
You know, one of the more businessy aspects of my life is that you know, I still work within a corporate structure. I work within the communications organization. So this is the team dedicated to disseminating information, making sure that you know, the brand makes sense. Everywhere we talk about it, you know, different things like that, in charge of social media and stuff. And so as a part of that, you know, I communicate pretty often with leadership there, and when I need to, the legal team. And I think unless you're going off the rails a lot, then you freak people out. But we've talked, you know, we're all friendly. We all know what's going on. And to be honest, I'm not the only evangelist out there. You know, we try and dub other people within our company with that power as well, to go out and speak. And in fact, everybody in our company. The only difference between me and some others is that I went through this super boring, and I say super boring because it was just scary and sad to look at myself on the screen, but, you know, media training, right? But that's you know, it's basically don't say stupid things to people, because, and it's kind of like common sense stuff. So yeah, I don't think they stress out, because we prepare for you know, representing the interests of the organization, and then bringing stuff back from the community. So
excellent. And, you know, I love that you said that, you know, really all of the employees are evangelists, because I think that's where corporate America has gone. That's changed a lot. Is there any formal acknowledgement of that we consider all of you evangelists for the company, or is it just something that kind of naturally has happened?
Yeah, it's been encouraged from the highest levels. So, you know, at a point, we kind of turned the corner on communicating and realized this is silly. We have thousands of people that could be talking about the great work that we're doing, and sometimes part of the issue is just that people don't know what we're up to, right? And so if we kind of give everybody in the company the ability to talk about it, or not the ability, but the permission, you know, before it was kind of discouraged, you know. Have you ever seen that thing on a Twitter profile that says, you know, these thoughts are my own, or these words are my own? You know, there were a lot of rules around what you could do on social media, what you couldn't, and because there were so many rules, it was kind of discouraging. You're like, screw it, I don't even want to mess with it, you know. And now, you know, now the message is, use all of our products. By the way, we get them for a very discounted rate. So use our products, play with our products, teach people about our products, talk to people about it, get their feedback, and find out what's going on that's good and what's bad, and bring it back. So yeah, it's now very actively encouraged.
Excellent. Thanks. I appreciate that, because it's been for me, I know it's been an interesting journey in technology and business over the last 20 years, watching the changes.
Yeah.
And I love where we're going with business these days.
Totally. Jonathan's going to try and talk. It's going to be funny, though, because you won't be able to hear him.
He's mute.
Sorry about that, folks. I just got a quick question. You might not want to answer it. Let's see, Mendel. Obviously, we've been discussing on the panel shows that you've also joined. There's been a lot of talk in the WordPress community that Automattic are going to be entering the hosting sector more vigorously. I was going to say will enter, but that's obviously nonsense, because they've been in the hosting area from day one, haven't they? Have you been, in some ways, I'm a bit surprised by the reaction from some elements of the WordPress community, because like I say, Automattic have been in the hosting area from day one, really. So have you been a little bit surprised by all the conversation that's kind of developed recently, that they're going to be entering hosting, and they're going to be kind of stepping on the toes of their hosting partners? What's your thoughts about this?
I think it's always interesting how people react, and a lot of times people react with a lot of emotion very quickly. Again, because this is a space where people are earning their livelihoods. All I'll say is this, and it's the same thing I've said every single time there have been shifts in the industry as far as hosting goes. The competition is good, and this is like we live in a free society where companies can decide to do things, offer products, spend money in marketplaces. Whatever. I don't think it affects how we're looking at products, which is we're trying to build awesome products for our customers and for new customers, and that's really what we're focused on. Is just building awesome WordPress. We have something that is. We're actively working on a new managed WordPress or upgraded managed WordPress that is more modern with PHP 7x and FreeSSL and stuff like that. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. My own actually, funny enough, they were my own feelings, because this whole discussion in the WordPress community, in some ways, I found a little bit bizarre, actually, because Automattic have been hosting from day one. They chose a very locked down kind of hosting solution, and now they're looking for a more less lockdown solution, but they've always been there. So I did find that a little bit bizarre. We're gonna wrap up the actual podcast part of the show. Hopefully, Mendel will stay on for another 10-15 minutes, which you'll be able to listen and watch on our YouTube channel and on the WP-Tonic website. Thanks, Mendel, for coming on the podcast part of the show. How can people get hold of you and learn more about you and what you're up to, Mendel?
Yeah, so on Twitter, Facebook, on the web as well, you can just go to ifyouwillit.com or at ifyouwillit or If You Will It on Facebook. The other thing I want to offer at the end of this podcast is my personal email address at GoDaddy. So if you have questions or concerns or just curious what we've been up to, just hit me up. It's Mendel, Mendel at godaddy.com. Super easy email, and super happy to answer any questions the people have. Give me the good, the bad, doesn't matter. Just really happy to talk. So.
Oh, thanks, Mendel. And Kim, how can people find more about you, Kim?
You can connect with me at Twitter at Kim Shipler, and you can always find me at whiteglovewebtraining.com.
And folks, if you want to talk to me, I'm easy to find on the internet, bit of an open book. You can use my YouTube channel, I was going to say, my Twitter, at Jonathan Denwood, or you can email me. My personal email is jonathan@wp-tonic.com. I'm here to answer any queries, questions, and if you've got input about guests or topics that we should discuss, I'm always welcome to that input. We'll be back on Friday for our great roundtable shows. Also, most of the panel are going to be at Sacramento WordCamp. It should be great. I think that's the 16th and 17th.
But Kim's talk is going to be better than mine. So,
are you sure?
We don't know that.
I'm probably bets, actually. I've got my bets down already. And thank you for listening to the show. Like I say, we'll be back on Friday, and every Wednesday we interview a member of the WordPress community, either building something, contributing, or an online expert on some skill that will help you grow your business. We'll be back. See you later, folks. Bye. Right, we're back on the bonus content. Got a question, Kim?
Nope, I was just formulating one. I was just waving bye to everybody.
Hey, since we're on the second part, I can eat a piece of cantaloupe, right?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Yes. All right. Stuff for the man starving as well. Jet lagged, starving, and probably rained on as well. So, have you been? Was GoDaddy surprised, or you surprised? I think probably the question was, you surprised about, over the past couple of years, the rise of these solely WordPress-focused hosting providers like WP Engine and Flywheel. Was that something that was anticipated, do you think, by the major hosting providers, or was it something that just appeared and was a little bit of a surprise? Yeah,
so speaking on my own behalf, not on behalf of GoDaddy, with this particular answer, I don't think it's surprising. You see technologies coming into existence, and then people specializing in those technologies every single day. And so, I think this was nothing different. WordPress, you see growth. There are companies that want to, by the way, exploit normally sounds like a bad word, but in this case it's not. You see companies who want to exploit that growth or exploit that market opportunity. They go out there and they do it, right? So I don't think there's anything weird about it. In fact, I think it would be strange if companies like that didn't come into existence, because it would probably be a sign that the ecosystem is either too closed or was dying, because people wouldn't be investing in specializing. So,
yeah, I think it's also been quite beneficial, isn't it? Because I think it really I can't even pronounce my word. It infused more energy into a sector that didn't seem to be. Trying to find the right word, at the cutting edge of technology in a way. It kind of, to me, it's instilled a bit more liveliness in the whole sector. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with part of that. I think that as far as web technology goes, as far as building sites and publishing content online, it is at the cutting edge. even with things like Medium, I think it's at the cutting edge. The reason I say that is because mostly of the ecosystem and the community around it. So, in some ways, this is going to be a bit of a controversial comment, but Medium in some ways is no different really than like Blogspot or even back in the day GeoCities. It gives you the opportunity to build something. The difference is Medium added two things to it: a discovery engine and a beautiful design, right? But beyond that, there's not anything, because a lot of people look at Medium as this super high tech version of web creation, something to be aspired to. I think the reason why are you guys still there? Oh, you just froze. I think the reason why WordPress is actually at the cutting edge is because of all of the support around it, right? And how fast it's growing, how fast it's becoming a more mature market and more mature software. So,
got any questions, Kim?
Actually, I did. Do you, from GoDaddy's perspective, or just from what you guys, I know you because you were evangelist into the WordPress group, but do you work and support other open source softwares also, or are you mainly focused on WordPress in that arena?
Yeah, that's the so it's a funny realization some people have because they know me as the WordPress guy in the WordPress space, but I spend time at an event apart, at Drupal events, at small business events, all sorts of things. So in fact, I think I'll be at World Hosting Days as well. So my job is to be accessible and a specialist wherever I am, and luckily I have a technical mind too. So that's easy. It's like learning Perl or learning C or .NET or something like that after you've learned the principles of programming using PHP or JavaScript or something like that. It takes some work, but you can learn another language. So.
Yeah. And do you guys do managed hosting for others? I started out as a Drupal shop, so I'm always looking at both sides of that. I was a Drupal shop when I was a developer for other people for the most part. Yeah. And I ran an online magazine, 2 online magazines and communities. But then when I started teaching other people to do it, I found WordPress was easier for me to teach non-technical people. So I that's where I moved. So do you guys have that type of managed hosting in other arenas also?
No, the only managed hosting we do is for WordPress.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up. I think Mendel wants to go and have a nap and have something more to eat and drink.
I get more fun as I get more tired, Jonathan.
Do you? Oh, let's go. Let's keep going then.
Especially if I had a little whiskey in the situation.
I was going to say
whiskey always helps.
Kind of like when Lee starts drinking on the roundtable shows, right?
Well, you don't see me with a few glasses in me. No, but just kind of finish off with one other question and then we'll wrap it up. So, now poor old Matt, he's been getting some arrows. He got some arrows from me on last Friday, but I thought I tried to keep my concerns constructive. I'm in two kind of camps when it comes to the criticism that Matt and the changes to the editors received, actually. And because you're part of the community, Mendel, but also you're a little bit outside it as well, you can maybe give some insight about this. The actual, my criticism, my actual personal criticism of the whole setup is not the actual idea of improving the editor. and how that should be accomplished in the most effective way. I actually do think it was well past its time to be overhauled and improved enormously. It was more concerned about, and it is linked to GoDaddy in a way. My concerns were how those changes were being communicated and how people could really affect the choices that were being made. What's your overall impression about all this controversialism around the editor? Do you think it's been more around how decisions are being made and how people can effectively communicate and be listened to, basically? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so two things. I think that Matt probably faces some of the early problems that we had communicating, and so doing it often and descriptively is super helpful. His recent blog post on Gutenberg was great. It basically stated everything. Like, there were no surprises in there to me. So I think communicating more often would be a huge help, and would probably create less pain for him in the long run. And number two, as far as communicating the changes, the actual use of Gutenberg and things like that, I think everybody needs to rally around WP 101 and Sidekick and WP Beginner and Bob Dunn, Bob WP, all of these people that create content for people starting out. Rally around them. Pay them money to fund their efforts to make this content. And any of those guys, if they don't have it, come to me and I'll give you free hosting to make sure you have something to test it on. Just like, let's rally around them, and then the hosts have an obligation to make sure that when people call up and they're confused, they're trying to figure out how to get through it, that they have a plan in place to educate people. So I think you're going to hit a large swath of people. And then if you're a freelancer or if you're a part of an agency, make your own content or make that transition. Like, this is, I've said it before on other shows, I'll say it again, is billable hours. The software changes. It's your job to educate your customer. Tell them that the software is changing. Explain to them why, shepherd them through it. Make some extra money. People should see this as an opportunity. So.
That's great. Thanks, Mendel. And I'd say, Mendel, thanks for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. Just quickly, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah. I forgot. I still have this.
Oh, yeah.
So it's at If You Will It. That's on Facebook, Twitter. The Grams. I'm on the Gram sometimes, and the web. And then if you want to see what we're working on at GoDaddy Pro, you can go over to godaddy.com/pro.
Oh, thanks so much. And like I say, folks, we're going to end our bonus content here. We'll be back on Friday for the live roundtable. You can join us live on Facebook or join us on Zoom. We love some people to join us, actually. And next week, we'll be interviewing another member of the WordPress community or online marketing specialist. We'll be seeing you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.